from the minute that we finished Pam Krooth's story in episode 188, I knew we had to do a part 2. And here it is. So for those of you who don't remember, Pam spoke to us about her infertility, her postpartum depression, and her desperate search, her longing for another child. She tried fertility treatments. They were pursuing adoption at the same time. And just when she found out that her treatment failed, she got a call from overseas saying, "We have a child for you." And so this is the part 2. It's about what it means to bring a child into your home from a different world, from a different culture, from a different race, and how to integrate that child into your life and into your world while still very much honoring the place that they came from. This is just such a beautiful story of a parent's love, of wanting to build a family and just wanting to share and spread the love around. I can't wait for all of you to listen. Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Barron, the founder and executive director of the nonprofit I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. On this podcast, I invite different people to join me in conversations about infertility, pregnancy loss, infant loss, surrogacy, adoption, and so much more. We laugh, we cry, and we challenge the Jewish community to think differently about a topic that has been shrouded in secrecy and shame for so long. So join me as we talk away the taboo. Guys, I have a really phenomenal treat for you. So a number of weeks ago, maybe it's even a month or two ago at this point, I've kind of lost track of time with the holidays and all that. I had the pleasure of interviewing Pam Krooth about her story, her story of her family. And we kind of left off at this really critical moment where she spoke about that call from the adoption agency, which said, "We have a match for you." And then we were like, okay, I guess we're going to have to do a part 2. And I'm just so honored to have her back here today because there's still so much to talk about your adoption story. We already know about your daughter, about Maya, and everything that got you to that point. But now we want to hear about David. So David is your son. So first of all, say hello to everybody again and, all the things.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be back talking about adoption because it's very near, obviously, and dear to my heart and how we grew our family. And it's complicated. And I think that's a really important part to talk about, especially if anybody listening is considering adoption.
1,000%. And the more we talk about it, the less people will feel alone and also will feel like, oh, I remember I heard a podcast once that person spoke about this thing and oh, that's so interesting. And some of the things we're going to talk about today are the fact that David comes from a different country, David comes from a different race. There are a lot of pieces here that are interesting and important for people to understand when you're considering adoption from a different place in the world. So, okay, enough with the introductions. Take us back. So you get the call, we have a match. What happens next?
Okay. Well, we're thrilled. Gosh, at that point, it had been 2 years. No, it had been more than 2 years, probably 2.5 years at that point that we had been in this process. For an international adoption, there are different ways to adopt, which I can talk about as well. But for an international adoption, and this was particular to Ethiopia at the time, my son is now 15. So it was a while ago. Each country has their own regulations and their own process for adopting. So with Ethiopia at the time, first of all, we had to look at the information that our adoption agency had sent us about our son. Well, wasn't really our son yet, right? But he was,
Not yet, but
yeah.
we have the vantage point of knowing that
We
yes.
do.
Okay, so keep going.
Yes. So they send you this information. We have to look over it. They say, if there's medical information, there's, whatever history they have. And then you're supposed to go take it to a doctor, a pediatrician, and then make sure that you want to go forward. Okay. So we did all that. We did. Then basically we got a
Hold
notice.
on, I'm just going to stop
Go
you
ahead.
for a second. I think that's
Yes.
super important because in all adoptions, you get that medical record, and then you can see like this child has this condition, or
Right.
this kind of whatever it is, and so you can decide. I think that's it's knowledge is power. So yeah,
Knowledge is power, and honestly, honesty with yourself is also is also very powerful in this. And I think that it's very important to think about if you want to adopt, what you are willing and really, really open to dealing with in your family. And I think you should be very, very honest with yourself about that.
Pam, can you say more about that? Like, what are the things? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are the things that people should think about? I mean, because I'm just thinking like, oh, well, maybe they had malnutrition because
Right.
because they didn't have enough. They were poor, and so like I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but like, what are some of these things?
Well, I think that also goes to sometimes how where you decide to adopt from. But if we're going to just talk about my experience in our situation, yes, I mean it's with an adoption internationally in Ethiopia, it would be more malnutrition. And then also the circumstances of the adoption. There's so many things to think about. What we have learned, and I can talk more about this, is transparency is very, very important with with your children and your adopted children. And so you have to think about, what am I willing to take on? What am I prepared for? What do I have the resources for, the support for, all of the things. And obviously, with any child, a biological child, there are things that come up that we have to deal with. Becoming a parent, you have to be prepared for things. But I think when you're adopting, you really have to think about all of those.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you were speaking right now, what came to mind was this idea that there are certain people when people become pregnant, and then you find out, God forbid, that there's some sort of genetic abnormality or something like that. Every parent makes a different decision. Some people are absolutely fine with whatever the issue is and feel equipped, prepared, and comfortable raising a child that would have a chronic illness or a terminal illness, and other people don't. But like what you're bringing to light here is these are hard conversations about like, what do you as parents have capacity to handle and what don't you? Like, we can't know what we can't know. Like, nobody can predict the future. You can't,
Right.
even if you're delivered like even if you in IVF, right? Like, even if you put in a perfect embryo, just because you have a perfect embryo doesn't mean that that child is never going to have ADHD or get cancer or have, stomach illness. Like, it only tests for what it can test for. It doesn't give you a complete picture of the person in the future. So these are really hard conversations that all parents or would-be parents should have to try to figure out what you can do, what you could manage and what you can't. I love that.
Yes. Right. Absolutely. And I think with adoption, obviously there's unknown, like we're talking about, but there's some known things that you can really decide about. And there certainly are people who welcome children into their homes with disabilities, certain, and that's incredible. But all of that is really important to think about.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so you were presented with medical information.
For the most part, in our situation, he was healthy and well. Then we say, okay, yes, we're in. We We want to do this. And then with Ethiopia, you get a message or an email just saying, okay, you need to be in Ethiopia in 2 weeks. Our process there was you go, you meet your child, and then you adopt them actually legally in Ethiopia. So you go to family court in Ethiopia. So a judge can say to you, have you met this child? Are you willing, do you understand what you're doing? Are you willing to be their parents? All that. And we did that. I mean, it's a incredible emotional experience to travel to another country like that, to meet your child who when we met our son, he was 1. And
Wow.
so he wasn't thrilled about us, I can tell you that much. And
You were strangers. I mean, how could he be?
we
You
were
were
white
strangers.
strangers that,
Yeah.
yes. So it's that's a whole other thing, to be really prepared for if you're going to do something like this. And we did that. We did that process. And then you have to wait a period of time. This is with Ethiopia because his visa had to be processed. Once the adoption was finalized in Ethiopia, they had to process his visa so that he could travel with us. And that can take several months.
Oh my goodness.
So we had to leave him in Ethiopia in an orphanage. Now, because we had legally adopted him, one of us could have stayed with him in Ethiopia, but we had a young child at home. It wasn't really possible for us to do that. So we had to leave him and go back home and wait, which is terrible.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely terrible. Then you get a call saying, okay, visa's processed. Come back. Come back. And you need to be back here in 2 weeks. And then, I'm remembering now there were some complications and it got delayed. So, that's another thing. It's adopting can be very challenging because of complications, because of changes of mind. Parenting in general is not for the faint of heart, I would say. And so doing it this way can be challenging, really.
Did you, Pam, in the meantime, he was little. So it's not as if he remembered meeting you and then you went away and he was wondering. So at least thank God for that at least.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, in that interim, did you get updates from him? Did you get pictures? Did he was there a process in terms of also acclimating him to you? And that did you leave pictures or videos? Was there any? I mean, again, we're talking about a long time ago, so I don't know. I'm sure things have changed in the meantime. I'm just thinking
Right.
about. I'm thinking about this 1-year-old child who
Yeah.
who has been told these are your new parents and you're going to have to go with them. And I'm thinking to myself, how do you take a 1-year-old that you've never met before on a, overseas flight and try to cajole them into no, we're going to take care of you. And they don't understand. And I'm just I'm just having all of these thoughts that are swirling in my head.
Yes, yes. So so to answer your question, no, we did not. I mean, we knew he was well cared for, which was really actually very important to us. In Ethiopia, the orphanage it's an orphanage. I'm not going to say it's not ideal by any means. They are an incredibly loving people, and the nannies that took care of him were just very, very loving. He was held, he was cared for, he was fed, all the things. But no, we don't get updates, and we weren't allowed to do anything. We weren't allowed to send anything, nothing, because it can be seen as a bribery, or they have to be very careful about about kind of you know what I'm saying, about it being.
Yes.
So no, to answer your question, no, we just had to kind of just wait. And to your point, though, he was as well as he could be. Obviously, he had already been separated, though, from his birth parents, from his birth mother. And that's a trauma in and of itself.
Yeah.
So it was actually more traumatizing for him when we came back and brought him home.
Yeah.
At the time, I had a serious fear of flying, and the flight home from Ethiopia to New York was 18 hours about, and I was terrified. And normally I would take some type of a medication, which I did not want to do because I had to care for this child. And
Of course.
I went and I got hypnotized.
Oh,
And let me tell you, it worked for
wow.
flying anxiety. That's another aside. But it worked. I was so anxious about having him, being anxious on the flight, being able to be present for him and not freaking out myself. So we went back. We were able to take him. We had him for a couple days in Ethiopia at our hotel. He was not happy. He
Yeah.
was very scared. I mean, he was everything he should have been,
Right.
really.
Right.
But it's not easy either when you have a very distraught child that you're
Of
caring
course.
for.
Of course.
And then the flight went okay. We got him home. On some level, it was, I want to say, easier. It really wasn't because we had a child.
Yeah.
I think if he had been our first, and it might have been even harder. But it was hard. It was a big adjustment. It was a big adjustment. And I think that I don't know that we handled it perfectly we didn't. You are trying to bond with a child. He was 14 months, I think, when we brought him home, and he's distraught and dealing with his own. I mean, you think about this. He just went from a language, the only language he had heard was Amharic, which is his language. Food, smells, the nannies that were taking care of him. I mean, he was basically, it's like he was kidnapped, honestly. I mean, he was ripped away from this by two complete strangers, brought to a different country. I mean, different language, different smells, different sounds, different food. It's quite something. It really is when you think about it. That is also something to really think about as far as what that is like for where they are emotionally, where you are emotionally. And it was wonderful, I have to say, in so many ways, because we had him and we were just beyond thrilled. Our daughter was over the moon and she really helped him acclimate. She really did.
How old was she at the time?
She was 5. She was almost 6. She was amazing. She was thrilled. He was like her little baby. And I think it really helped him to have her. And I think this is very similar to bringing any child into your home. It is wonderful and it is very, very hard. It is incredible. It is scary. It is challenging. And it was that way with our daughter for different reasons than with our son.
Do you remember anything or like one or two instances in particular? Like not the details, but like the kinds of scenarios that were particularly hard. Like, was it more the food or the sleeping or the like? I don't know if he had a nanny or went to daycare or he went to school. Like, do you remember any specific instances that were particularly difficult with the transition?
Yes, when we brought him home to New York, we moved then about 2 months later
Oh
to
gosh, right. Okay.
come back to Maryland to be with family. So he was completely just out of sorts. And I remember that he would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning screaming. And I think it's probably mostly because he would sleep and then he would wake up and then realize where he was
Yeah.
and be scared and confused.
Yeah.
I mean, screaming, like, not just like your baby's up and they're crying. I mean, like, screaming bloody murder.
Yeah.
And obviously it would wake me up kind of like in a panic. I'd want to get to him. He was hard to soothe. We had a daughter who was just starting first grade. So I was concerned about her as well because she was not sleeping well because he was waking her. It was just, that was really tough. And that went on for quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally understandable. Like,
Yeah.
people say that, sleep is, when you forget everything, right? Like,
Right.
everything kind of goes away. And then when you wake up and you're back in your own reality again, you're like, oh God, how did I get here again?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious also, like during this period, like one of the things we haven't talked about already is also just you brought home a child from another country. Like you brought home a child from a different race. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm curious about one, what your thoughts were about that sort of going in regard to the adoption of like how hard you had to work to try to grapple with like my child is not going to look like me, and what does that mean for me, and what does that mean for him or them? Like you didn't know what that child was going to be, when the process started. And then also just as you went out in public with him and seeing that, he clearly looked different. Like, can you speak about some of those ideas?
Yes. So that is obviously a very important thing if anybody's considering adoption to think about. For myself and my husband, the biology and the looking like us was not important. It was just not, I don't know. I can't really say it wasn't important. I didn't care.
Yeah,
um, but if you do, that's important, you know?
totally.
And yes, I think that it is critical if you are going to if you are going to bring a child into your home who is not racially similar to you, and I know more about this now, honestly, than I did back then. It's very, very important for children of color who come into a white family to have people who look like them in their world. You may not be able to have that in your family. We don't have that in our family, but your neighborhood, your community, their school, the adults in their life, it's very important that they have people who look like them. And that might mean for some people moving. I can't say it's not important. I think there is somewhat of a narrative or a misconception in our world that, oh, well, love conquers all, that I can just love them. If we just love them enough, it's going to be okay. And that's not true. To love them is very, very important. Yes. But there are parts I can say, my son, he needs to see reflected in other people. He needs to learn about not only being a Black male in our culture, but being Ethiopian as well. We have done, I think, we try hard to do a good job with that, but I can tell you that the Ethiopian part, I, I, I mean, I don't think I'm doing a very good job with that, to be honest with you. And we are fortunate to live in an area that has a large Ethiopian community, which is wonderful. But
And it sounds like you chose that purposely,
well,
or yeah.
we just happen, honestly, DC happens to be one of the largest Ethiopian communities outside of Ethiopia. So we happen to get really lucky with that because it's where we're from. It is something that we need to do a much better job of his Ethiopian heritage, learning more about that, bringing that into our home, into his world. I'm just saying, we need to do a better job. We really do.
And then there's the extra added layer of, you know, you're Jewish. The two
Yeah.
you are a Jewish family. I mean, and for any family that's adopting, they have specific culture or religious tradition. So there's the family. I don't even know if I'm using these terms right. So you'll correct me if I am. If I'm not, excuse me. But like there is the family and country and culture of origin of their birth, family, culture, religion, etc. And then there's the adoptive family and
Hmm.
and all of their pieces. And so how do you how do you bring all those pieces together? Like what have you done?
Well, I mean, as far as Judaism or as far as kind of, so
All the things.
all the things.
All the
Uh-huh.
things. We're here. We're talking about
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah. 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 Well, okay. So I mean, as far as just him being Black, we live in a diverse community. Our neighborhood, our actual neighborhood is not that diverse. I have to be honest about that, but his school is, which is very important because he has peers that are Black and that are also adopted as well. So
Oh,
that's a
wow.
whole nother
Amazing.
community where you want your kid to know other adopted kids too. And we have just my husband and I, our communities, our friend group is diverse as well. He doesn't just see white people. He does see white people in the four of us, yes, and in our extended family, but in our community, our friends, or when we have people over, all. And as far as being, the Judaism, it's interesting. There are Ethiopian Jews, as I'm sure you know, but his birth family is not Jewish. As far as the religious aspect, I don't know. I haven't been as He's Jewish. I mean, he's being raised in a Jewish family. For us, the more important part is the cultural aspect of Ethiopian culture. The religious part wasn't important for us. It's
Yep.
more the cultural aspect of him learning about Ethiopian culture. We are Reformed Jews. We celebrate all the holidays. Our daughter was bat mitzvahed. David did not want to have a bar mitzvah. And that is for different reasons, not having to do with any of this, his adoption or anything like that. And so we honored his wish not to do that. But he goes to friends' bar and bat mitzvahs. It's interesting. We just had a conversation though about what's going on in the world right now as far as Jews and what just happened in Australia.
Yep.
And we had a conversation. We were lighting the menorah. We had lit the menorah and we were talking about kind of what's going on, just talking about the world right now and how do we celebrate being Jewish? Do we stay very proud of being Jewish? And how also do we keep ourselves safe? We said very openly to David, you're Jewish and you're Black, and you have to be really aware of your surroundings for both of those reasons. It's obviously more obvious that he's Black, and it's not obvious that David is Jewish. I don't think a lot of people associate, even though there are Black people that are Jewish, but you know what I mean? We just try to have a lot of open communication about all of these things. And our kids go to a Jewish sleepaway. It's not a Jewish sleepaway camp. It's a regular sleepaway camp, but the majority of the kids there are Jewish and they observe Shabbat if you want to. They do. And so he has friends from all different kinds of religions. Where we probably need more of is the Ethiopian part. And I can say that is one of the challenges of an international adoption from anywhere, is in really making an effort to learn about and include your child's culture in your world. It's easy not to do it, I have to say. If you were to see my son, he's a 15-year-old kid. He's like interested in his video games and his friends and his all the things American. It takes effort. If someone is considering adopting from another country, another culture, to think about that. You have to think about that. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Moving to a slightly different topic, I'm curious about how, like, being a mother to a child who is biologically yours and to a child who is not biologically yours, like, how has that been? Like, how do you straddle that? I mean, we all know, like, family is family is family. And like, I talk to people all the time who have pieces of this where maybe one of their children were born with a donor egg or donor
Mhm.
sperm, or maybe some were born via surrogate and some weren't. Like, so there's, thank God, like, we live in a time and space in history where there are so many options that it's not just your egg and your sperm and your uterus, like that builds a family. So obviously, like, our worldview has expanded dramatically in terms of how people think about family. But I'm just curious for you as a parent, for the two of you, you and Stephen. What did you talk about? How do you think about this idea?
I know for my friends who have, let's say, because we have two biological children, like there is 100% no difference in my connection, in my love for my children. I think that there maybe some people could be concerned about that. I can tell you across the board, for the most part, that is you. They're your children. I mean, they are your children, just 100%. That is, but I will say that having David in our family, we have conversations like the one I was just talking about the other night about race, about culture. We have conversations that I don't think we would be having if we had another biological child. And they are incredible conversations and really important conversations. At the same time, I think it's important to remember, and whether it's adoption, whether, like, I'm glad you mentioned like a donor egg or donor sperm, that it's not it's not my son's responsibility to teach us about being a biracial family. It's not our children's responsibility. We made these decisions. These are adult decisions that were made that changed the course of our children's lives. And it's really important because we as humans, I think, have a fundamental right to know about where we come from. It's really, really important for people who are considering parenting children that are not biologically related to them to be willing and open to talk to their children about where they come from.
Hi, everyone. It's Amy. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that if talking away the taboo means something to you, if you've listened to an episode and felt less alone, more seen, or more understood, please support us so we can continue doing this important work. Everything we offer, this podcast, our support groups, our resources, all of them are completely free. And that's intentional, actually, because we never want someone to have to choose between getting help and affording it. But truthfully, we can't do this without your help. So if you're in a position to give even just a little, it really helps keep us going. It helps someone else find the support that they need too. So please donate at iwassupposed-to-have-a-baby.org/donate. It's really easy and it really makes a difference. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being part of this community. I so much appreciate that because, look, for you in your family, I mean, just practically speaking, physically, David looks different. So immediately, any person walking down the street would see, oh, there are, three people that look like this and one person that looks like this. And immediately they know that there's a difference. For other people, and I'm going to use the example of donor eggs or donor sperm, or even donor embryos. There's a lot of conversation around like, well, I want to pick the donor that looks most like us so that other people don't know. Like that's the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the the fear there is like something that you were talking about before of like, well, can I really love a child that doesn't look like me? Can I really love a child that doesn't share my genetics?
Mm-hmm.
And I hear over and over and over again. I mean, adoption is the perfect example of this because, donor egg or donor sperm, like they're still, or using someone's uterus, like there are still facets of that process that are still, quote, theirs. But, every single person that I speak to who is grappling with like the could I love question, and they explore this in therapy and they go over and over it and they're not sure. And, they go back and forth and they perseverate and da 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 da. When that baby comes out, it's like all of the questions get wiped away. Like they're like, oh, this is my baby. This is my baby. This is the child that I was longing for and dreaming for. And then the burden again is on the parent of, well, then are you sharing it with your child? The fact
Yeah.
that this child isn't 100% yours, or are you not? And then, then we get into whole other issues with all thousands of other issues. But
Yeah.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that what if you adopt a child that's a little bit older or whatever,
Right.
and it takes time, but
Yeah.
the love is huge and it will come.
I'm curious also about just like the idea that, you know, now your son is 15. When when you got him, he was 1. And you already said about how you're having conversations now about racism and about anti-Semitism. And obviously, none of us have conversations like that with a 1-year-old. So
Right.
we know that conversations change over the course of time. And as your son becomes an adult, that there are things that will be brought to his attention in a way that he hasn't had to think about before because it wasn't developmentally appropriate. I'm curious about whether there were other points in this journey where you felt like we need to talk about this now, or we need to talk about that now, or like here's a new thing that I hadn't thought about was coming now that he's 5.
Mhm.
When did you say to him that he was adopted? Like when did he have the language of that? And then how did he communicate that to his friends and to
Right.
other people?
Well, that's a great question. And I think that the answer to that question is if you are going to adopt, the language should be there from the very beginning. There should never be the conversation that happens when they're what I don't know what age you know what
Whatever the age is. Yeah.
that is the word adoption should be in your language, in your family. When you're reading, they should have, if you can, if you do have information, there should be books. There are books about adoption. You make your own book about their beginnings, about their adoption, and you start reading it to them when they are babies. I mean, it should be there should never be a conversation. Do you know what I'm does that making sense?
A
Like, I mean,
hundred
there
percent.
will be many conversations, yes, because as they start to learn stuff, they're gonna have questions about, like, "Wait a minute," when they start learning about where babies are come from, and, "I didn't grow in your tummy," and yes, like, you will have those conversations as they get older, but there should not be a thought of, "Well, when they're 10, we'll tell them," or I'm just making up, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, conversations will come up depending on what's happening. It can be anywhere from they learn about how babies are made in school, they see a pregnant woman. You have to be ready for anything. To all of those conversations too, a response I have heard adopted kids say, my parents would say to me, "We'll tell you when you're 18," or "We'll tell you when." No, what you tell them has to be age appropriate, but if they start asking questions, you need to be answering those questions. And if you need help with that, there are a lot of places that can help you with that.
There's a whole body of research out there. This is probably what you're talking about, but there's a whole body of research out there that specifically talks about donor conceived children and adoptive children, and about how the psychological well-being of these children, you create more psychologically sound children when there is no big reveal. That
Yes.
that that it's just part of their story from the very beginning, and that it's yes.
Because when there are secrets equal shame. Secrets equal there's something wrong that I'm not being told this, right? We only keep secrets if we're hiding something that is not good. I mean, for the most part. So
Yep.
you don't want any of that feeling around however they came into these children come into our families. It should be very open.
Uh, uh,
Yes.
Yes, 1,000%, 1,000%. And there's, I mean, there are dozens and dozens, probably hundreds, maybe thousands of people who have written blog posts and taken to social media who talk about like, oh, my parents just told me, or I just found out that fill in the blank. And like, I don't even know what to do with myself anymore.
Right.
And we know that these children have a tremendous amount of trauma and processing, and their emotional well-being is really is totally shaken because their foundation is totally shaken. And so if you just start with that from the beginning, then there's no foundation to rock. Like it's part of the story.
And your connection with your child is going to be so much stronger because they know that they can talk to you about these things. If there is a sense in your family that we don't talk about this,
Yeah.
that's going to affect your relationship. They're going to go other places. And we have found over and over again, research shows that adopted children, donor children, any child feel so much closer to their parents when they're given this information and it's open communication about it. The truth is, your child will be so much more connected to you if you support them through their lives with this.
1,000%. I always think about there's enough that teenagers go through anyway, trying to
Mhm.
grapple with getting older and puberty and the hormone shifts and all the social things that happen when we're teenagers. And often there are braces and like acne and like all the things. And then like you add on top of that, oh, actually your parents aren't your parents. Like what? Like it's just
Yeah, right.
it's just not fair. It's just not
No.
fair.
Yes.
It's just not fair. I know that you're involved with an organization that works on these issues and other issues around adoption. We're going to include that in the show notes so that people can reach out to them. And we have a couple of other organizations also that we refer out to. Pam,
Great.
I just have one more question. You've been so open and so generous in sharing your story and your struggles and the emotions behind it and building your life with this new addition and his integration into your family and all of it. There are all these people out there that are still struggling. There are all these people out there that are not sure if they will ever have children and are considering different options and not sure just how to go about it, or also just how to think about it. Like for you, adoption was something that was always on the table, but for many other people, they come to it in at a time where maybe they've run out of other options and they don't know if they can kind of get over that emotional hurdle. So could you just speak to like all those people out there and just advice that you would give to them as someone who's really now
Yeah.
sitting on the other side?
Yeah. I think that I understand this very deeply. All of the people probably listening, it is so hard when you want to be a parent so badly and it's not happening. It is so hard. And I do think that I know there are people who just don't want only want biological children, which is absolutely okay. Understand if there is a part of you that is open, that is maybe starting to open to having a child that is not biologically related to you or 100% if you're open to adopting, I think that you will find a love that the love that I'm getting emotional, that you've always dreamed of. And it's the same love that you that you would have wanted for with a biological child, the same love. I mean, it's just incredible. It's an incredible way to build a family. I mean, I could not be more grateful for my son.
You people I think some people just they just don't understand how it's possible to
Yeah.
get to that place. And seeing and listening to you and to others, this is what helps. This is what helps. And like, because there are two needs out there, right? There are like, there is a deep human need to be a parent,
Mhm.
deeply, deep need that most people have, not everyone, but that most people have. And I think so much of the psychological like trauma is that when it doesn't happen, or when it isn't happening on the timeline that you expected, like there's so much about that that's hard. And like if people just understood that there are exactly what you just said, like there are so many ways to build a family, and if they could open up their hearts a little bit, or if they feel that their hearts are opening, that there's so much love to go around and so much need around with children around the world who need parents who want to give them a beautiful, incredible family. I'm so inspired by this. I mean, I'll say it here. You know, I'm a person that never considered adoption. It never crossed my mind. I I don't even think I knew anyone who was adopted when I was growing up. And the more I have conversations with people in this space with all kinds of journeys, you know, with adoption or embryo donation or sperm donation, whatever, I like, I just, it's just about love. At the end of the day, it's just about love. And it's just about wanting to have a family and that deep human need, that core need at the end of the day. And I just think it's just so powerful and so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I thank you. And also remembering the love is immense and honestly beyond your wildest dreams. And there's other really important things though as well, to remember about adopting a child as well.
Right, right. It's not, you know, rainbows and butterflies. It's
Yes,
not all of that. Like there are
exactly. Yes,
hard, practical,
yes,
difficult, emotionally challenging, all those things. Yes, like it's not, yeah, it's not all
yes.
starry
Right.
grassy fields.
Right. Right. It's not the narrative that the journey ends at the adoption, like, and now everybody's great. There is much joy, but also a lot to be really thoughtful about.
Yeah. Look, that's exactly why I wanted to do this part of
Yeah.
the conversation. Like I thought it was totally disingenuous to just stop the conversation at a point where like, okay, well, she got the call and we know she adopted her son and like life is good and like all is good. Like no, like it's important for people to hear all of this too.
Yes.
So, Pam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have any comments about this episode or would like to suggest a future episode, please reach out at 917-382-0422 or send us an email at info@iwassupposedtohaveababy.org or info@iwsthab.org. And please don't forget to like, rate, and review so we can continue spreading the support to the wider Jewish community.